A few weeks ago, a meme started spreading across X. It was a photo of one of the most recognizable faces in tech media, shaved completely bald, no context needed. People who followed the story knew exactly what it meant. A few months earlier, Marques Brownlee, MKBHD, had made a very public bet. If Tesla managed to produce the CYBERCAB at a $30,000 SDIH price point before 2027, he would shave his head on camera, live, in front of millions of people who watch his every video. He was confident. Most people were. And then Tesla announced that the first CYBERCAB had rolled off the production line at Giga, Texas, in February. 2 months ahead of the April start date that Elon Musk had been publicly repeating for months, the meme spread instantly. The bald image went viral. And somewhere in the noise of that joke, something genuinely significant was getting buried. Because this story isn't really about a bet, and it isn't really about Elon Musk proving people wrong. It's about a car that technically shouldn't exist yet, and the much harder question of what happens once it does. Let's start with what actually happened at Giga, Texas, because it matters more than the headlines suggest. Tesla didn't just build a car. They completed something called the unboxed process, a manufacturing system that has never been used at scale in the automotive industry before. Traditional car manufacturing works like this. One main body moves down a single conveyor line, and workers and robots add components as it passes. It's the same basic model Ford introduced over 100 years ago. The unboxed process throws that out entirely. Instead of one body moving in a line, large modules, the front, the rear, the floor, the sides are all built simultaneously in separate stations. They come together only once, at the very end, in a single marriage step. Think of it less like building a car and more like assembling a puzzle, where every piece is being made at the same time. Critics looked at this and predicted disaster. They pointed to the Model 3 production hell, the years of delays, the tent factories, the public embarrassment, and said Tesla was walking straight back into the same trap, just with a more complicated process. The unboxed system requires robotic arms and factory management software to be perfectly synchronized across multiple stations simultaneously. One timing error, and the whole thing falls apart. But here's what those critics didn't account for. The first CYBERCAB exists. It's not a concept. It's not a render. It rolled off a completed production line inside Giga, Texas in February 2025, and that single fact means Tesla has already crossed a threshold that many people publicly said they couldn't cross. Now, what actually happened to that first car? This is where it gets interesting. That vehicle almost certainly will never be driven by a customer. It might never see a public road at all. The first unit off any new production line isn't a product, it's a test subject. Tesla's engineers will likely disassemble it completely, pulling apart adhesive bonds, examining welds, measuring tolerances down to fractions of a millimeter, checking every surface finish and mechanical fastening point. If they find something that doesn't meet spec, they fix the process before the next car is built, or the car goes into durability testing, hammered over rough surfaces, put through thermal extremes, stressed in ways no customer would ever stress it, all to find failure points before they become recall points either way. From now until April, Tesla is running what's essentially a very slow, very deliberate warm-up. The machinery speeds up gradually. Engineers find problems. They fix them. They speed up again. In manufacturing, this is called an S-curve ramp, and Elon Musk has specifically used that language when talking about CYBERCAB production. He's also said something that most people glossed over. He said that once the line is optimized, once the bugs are out, and the process is stable, it will run so fast that humans won't be able to physically get close to it, that it will look less like a car factory and more like a consumer electronics assembly line, that Tesla could ultimately build a CYBERCAB in under 10 seconds. Under 10 seconds. That number sounds insane. But this is also a vehicle with roughly 80 structural components versus the 200 in a Model Y. No steering wheel, no pedals, no instrument cluster, no complex dashboard. Fewer parts means fewer steps, means faster cycles. The math, at least on paper, starts to make sense. And this is where the story starts to get uncomfortable, because building the car fast and cheap is only half the equation, maybe less than half. The $30,000 price point isn't arbitrary. In the automotive industry, That number is a threshold. Below it, a vehicle becomes accessible to fleet operators, transportation companies, logistics businesses. It shifts from being a product sold to individuals into a product that powers a service economy. If a cybercab costs $30,000, requires no driver, and can operate nearly around the clock, the math on cost per mile becomes genuinely disruptive. Not disruptive in the Silicon Valley buzzword sense, disruptive in the sense that it could actually undercut Uber, Lyft, and traditional taxi services on price. That's why Elon Musk keeps returning to that number. It's not a marketing figure. It's the line between a technology demonstration and a real business model. But to hit it, Tesla has to solve 4 problems simultaneously, and each one is hard enough on its own. First, fully unsupervised autonomous driving. The cybercab has no steering wheel and no pedals. That means there is no fallback, no human to grab the wheel if the system hesitates. If full self-driving isn't ready, genuinely, provably, legally ready, the car simply cannot operate. It can't be sold. It can't generate revenue. It sits second, regulation. Every U.S. state treats autonomous vehicles differently. Texas has been relatively permissive, which is why Austin has been Tesla's testing ground. But Austin is not Chicago. It is not New York. It is not Los Angeles. A national rollout requires navigating dozens of different regulatory frameworks, and regulators don't move at Tesla speed. Third, even with fewer components and the unboxed process, hitting $30,000 means Tesla needs tight control over battery costs, raw material sourcing, and labor, all in an environment where inflation and supply chain pressure haven't gone away. The 4,680 battery cell, which the cybercab uses, has been getting cheaper as Tesla refines its dry electrode process. But getting cheaper and cheap enough aren't the same thing yet. Fourth, scale. A low-cost vehicle only works economically when produced at massive volume. If Tesla is building a few thousand cybercabs a year, fixed costs per unit are brutal. The whole model depends on scale, and scale depends on all 3 of the other problems already being solved. For problems, simultaneous solutions required 2027 deadline. You can see why Marquez Brownlee felt comfortable making that bet, but here's what he, and most skeptics, may have underestimated. The cybercab wasn't designed like a normal car facing those pressures. It was designed specifically to escape them. Fewer parts, new manufacturing process, in-house batteries, and crucially, in its early deployment phase, Tesla's primary customer for the cybercab isn't you. It's Tesla itself that matters more than people realize. When Tesla operates its own robotaxi fleet, it doesn't need the car to meet consumer retail standards on day one. It can fix problems in the field. It can iterate quietly. It absorbs the early risk internally, which buys time to optimize before the product ever reaches a paying individual customer. It's a clever buffer, and it might be just enough. But then there's the data, and the data is where this story changes. Since Tesla launched its Robotaxi program in Austin, it has logged approximately 800,000 miles of real-world autonomous operation. That's a meaningful number. It's real roads, real traffic, real unpredictability, not a closed course or a simulation. And in those 800,000 miles, Tesla has reported 14 crashes to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. 14 crashes, 1 every 57,000 miles. Now here's the number that puts that in context. According to Tesla's own published safety data, the average American driver experiences a minor collision once every 229,000 miles. Tesla's Robotaxi, by this comparison, is crashing roughly 4 times more often than a human driver. For a technology whose entire premise is that it's safer than humans, that gap is not a footnote. It's the central question. Waymo Alphabet's autonomous vehicle unit has logged over 127 million fully driverless miles. Their crash rate is 1 incident per 98,000 miles. That's still not perfect, but it's nearly twice as safe as Tesla's current numbers. Across a dataset more than 150 times larger, the comparison is uncomfortable. And Tesla makes it more uncomfortable by how it handles the transparency around it. NHTSA VA filings from Tesla contain heavily redacted details. The context of those 14 crashes, where they happened, what caused them, how severe they were, is largely obscured from public view. That means every crash, no matter how minor, becomes a news cycle, because there's no surrounding information to put it in perspective. The absence of detail doesn't create calm. It creates suspicion. There are also unresolved questions about whether Tesla's fully autonomous robotaxi operations in Austin are genuinely driverless, or whether human vehicles follow behind as a form of soft supervision that doesn't get disclosed. If true, that distinction matters enormously in any fair safety comparison. A driverless car being quietly shadowed by a human backup is not the same as a driverless car operating alone.